The 2024 NFL season is right around the corner. Today, we're going to spend some time going over some bold predictions for the upcoming year. These bold predictions are courtesy of Bleacher Report, written by Brent Sobleski, and let's take a look and see what they got for us today. So I guess here is the summary of how bold these are actually going to get, and he makes the point here that Bill Belichick was never going to be with the New England Patriots forever. Joe Flacco's career was all but finished. No one really knew who Puka Nacua was, and the Houston Texans were just trying to gain a footing after years of rebuilding. That is kind of crazy to think about it. How many new storylines and new players just emerged in a given NFL season? And even Aaron Rodgers was going to take the New York Jets to new heights. Lost him in 4 plays. So, a lot of stuff can happen in the course of an NFL season. And so the following 10 predictions may seem audacious. That means we're probably going to get some crazy stuff, but I am here for it. The first one, Dallas Cowboys CeeDee Lamb sets a regular season receptions record. Now, CeeDee Lamb actually right now, it has just been reported as I'm filming this video that he is holding out of training camp because he has not gotten a new extension from the Dallas Cowboys. He is due for a massive one, probably just right under maybe Justin Jefferson with all the money he got. But honestly, I don't think this is a super crazy one. Mentioned here, Michael Thomas, the record to beat is 149, and last year, he had 135. So 15 more catches, and he was there. And you look at the Cowboys offense, Brandon Cooks is now their wide receiver 2. They do have Jake Ferguson, but a big addition the Cowboys were supposed to have this offseason was getting another weapon opposite of CeeDee Lamb. I mean, there was some smoke about maybe Xavier Worthy staying in the state of Texas and going to the Cowboys. But I really could see this happening, especially maybe if Lamb does not sign his contract. I mean, I think something will get done. We've seen this before with even Ezekiel Elliott, star players for the Cowboys. They do get these contracts if they do force the hand a little bit of Jerry Jones. But if Lamb can stay healthy, obviously that is the big caveat. He's got to play 17 games. I would give this maybe a 35% chance of happening. I mean, 150 catches is still a ton, but obviously he does have the added game that Michael Thomas did not have. So I don't know. I don't really think this is a super bold prediction. I honestly think there's a decent shot that this could happen. Number 2, Chicago Bears Caleb Williams shatters rookie passing record. And so it's a pretty big meme now that no Chicago Bears quarterback has ever thrown for 4,000 yards in a single season. I do think if Caleb stays healthy for 17 games, he will throw for over 4,000 yards, no questions asked, especially with the 17th added game. But it is kind of crazy. I guess Fields did get banged up every single year with the Bears. He never threw for 4,000 yards, though, especially in this day and age. But the record is 43-74 from Andrew Luck, and that was only with 16 games. Can Williams do that? He would have to average 257 yards per game to beat that. Last season, 10 quarterbacks who appeared in 5 or more games averaged more, including CJ Stroud, who would have broken the record if he didn't suffer that concussion against the Jets and miss 2 games. This is another one I think has a fairly good chance of hitting if Caleb can stay healthy because of all the weaponry that is mentioned here. Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, even having a running back out of the backfield in DeAndre Swift, a couple of tight ends, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. I mean, they are loaded with talent on the offensive side of the ball. Shane Waldron, as their offensive coordinator, is still up in the air, but I do think he's at least a serviceable offensive coordinator. He's not going to limit what Caleb can do. He's not going to be like a Luke Getsy who the Bears had for a few years down there. But I don't think this is super bold as well. I do think Caleb has a great chance to do this. I would probably give this again around a 35-40% chance of happening. I guess that's what I'm going to try and do now for every single one of these. Just give a percent chance it happens. But rookie passing record, can Caleb break it? I think he has a good chance due to all this weaponry. New kickoff rule sees a surge in special team scoring. I feel like this is a no-brainer. How is this really even considered a bold prediction? So yeah, this particular prediction may not be as bold. Something I do wonder though with this new kickoff rule is if the first couple of weeks of the season, while teams are still kind of adjusting and figuring out how to actually cover these kickoffs, if some teams are going to cheese their way to a couple of victories, we're going to see maybe 2 or 3 kickoff returns for a touchdown. Could that be something that we see maybe the Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, all of that speed? One of them just had a great system to just get easy kickoff returns. I could definitely see something like that happening, but as things do happen in the NFL, eventually teams do catch on. So I don't think it will last forever, but I do think early in the season, we could see some teams just pulling off some miraculous wins due to these new kickoff rules. So the percent for this is 100%. I have no doubt that this is going to lead to a big surge in special team scoring. Up next, we have the Washington Commanders go from worst to first in the NFC East This is definitely the most bold one yet. That's pretty crazy when you think about the Eagles and all that they have accomplished in the last several years. Same with the Dallas Cowboys, winning 12 games in multiple straight seasons. I guess Bleacher Report here is just expecting Jaden Daniels to have a RG3 type rookie season, or I guess you could say CJ Stroud type rookie season, and just really raise the floor and ceiling of their team right away. And so yeah, they mentioned the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud right here. So I guess it would come down to just having Jaden Daniels have an amazing season. I still don't think their roster, though, is good enough to do so. Their offense is not bad. I mean, Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson in the backfield is decent. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson at wide receiver. But defensively, they were like one of the worst teams in the league last year, like historically bad. I know they're bringing in Dan Quinn. They brought in a lot of new personnel, but they didn't really bring in any like proven star players. I still think their pass rush is pretty weak because they traded away all of their guys on that line. So this is solely really dependent on Daniels and how much they can get out of their rookie class. I know they had a lot of top draft picks, but I still just think this is a little bit of a stretch. You could make the argument the Cowboys, they're going to be worse. They did not really add many players to their team. They actually lost a handful of pretty good players, and they lost Dan Quinn. They have a new defensive coordinator as well. There's a lot of pressure, especially with like Dak Prescott, the last year of his contract. Maybe they take a massive step back, but the Eagles, I still think this is the Eagles' year to win this division for a couple of reasons. One, because there's been no repeat winner in the NFC East for like 20 years. It's been flip-flopping between the Cowboys and the Eagles for several years now. And then two, all of the additions. Saquon Barkley, you bring in an entirely new secondary pretty much. You add in two new coordinators. You have Kellen Moore, you have Vic Fangio. They should be a lot better and more coherent. I think the Eagles are still the easy pick for this division, but hey, maybe if Daniels has an RG3 type year, they can make something happen. So if I had to give this a percent, I would probably say like 20%, maybe 15%. The Commanders could go worst to first. I think they could easily finish ahead of the Giants, but the Cowboys is going to be tough and the Eagles is going to be nearly impossible. Up next, Justin Fields emerges as Pittsburgh Steelers' long-term solution at quarterback. Let's take a look and see what he says about this one. So Russell Wilson is the quarterback one in Pittsburgh for the Steelers. That is correct. I do think Russ will start at least maybe a quarter or a half of the season. I was taking a look at the Steelers schedule and it is very, very easy. Like take a look at their first 10 games. Atlanta will probably be a toss-up game. Denver, they'll be favored. The Chargers at home, they'll be favored in that game. At the Colts, will be an underdog. Dallas will be a tough game, but the Raiders is not hard. You also get the Giants in a couple of weeks. You get Washington as well. I think they have a good chance to go 500 or better in this first 10-game stretch. It's really the end of the season. Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati again. I mean, that is ridiculous. A crazy end of the season. Easily the hardest stretch for probably any team in the league next season. I mean, you play all of your divisional games, and then you play the Eagles and the Chiefs. That's just pretty ridiculous. What I've been saying about this is I think Russ will start the season, do good enough to keep the job, and then once they get to that final stretch of games, that is when Russ will lose his job. That is when Fields will step in, and he'll have that final stretch to prove he can earn a new contract and even get the Steelers into the playoffs. Am I super bullish on that? I am not, because I've never really been a huge fan of Fields' game. I don't love quarterbacks that just can't really pass the ball consistently. He's super dynamic, making plays happen out of nothing, using his legs, but we've seen it time and time again. Even in some practice videos this offseason, I've seen it. His anticipation, his throwing outside the numbers, just very late and also just not very accurate. And I think those issues will continue with Fields for the rest of his career. I just don't really see how that completely changes. But maybe Arthur Smith gets some development out of him and he does improve vastly as a passer, but I don't really buy this. I would probably put this as well at maybe a 30% chance, a little bit higher than the past one about the Commanders going from worst to first, but I still don't think there's a great chance that this does happen. All right, up next, the Los Angeles Rams' Kobe Turner becomes a game wrecker, enters depoy conversation. Wow, that is some huge praise for Kobe Turner, who almost, and maybe should have, won NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2023. Turner led all rookies with 9 sacks last year, and although the sacks do not indicate the full story, he did have constant pressure. There's a good point here that is made. He was playing right next to Aaron Donald, who is seen as, one of the best defensive players of all time, and that's ultimately going to be the biggest factor in determining, how good Kobe Turner actually is. Last season, he faced a lot of single blockers. Aaron Donald was taking up double teams, sometimes triple teams. Kobe Turner only had to beat his man one-on-one. That is a huge advantage for a pass rusher. I mean, it's a lot easier to go around somebody versus block somebody one-on-one all by yourself. So, but to counter my point, it is mentioned here, the interior defender registered 17 pressures and 6 sacks on plays in which the quarterback took 3 or fewer drops, meaning he was getting to the quarterback very quickly. Second, the rookie thrived even when double teamed. He finished second behind the New York Jets' Quinnen Williams, a former first-team All-Pro, with 22 pressures when facing 2 or more blockers, which is very impressive. But things will be a lot different now on this Rams defense because Aaron Donald is no longer there. So can he this season become a game wrecker and a Defensive Player of the Year candidate? I can't say that. I can't go that far. Kobe Turner was incredible last year, and I'm really bullish on him becoming a perennial Pro Bowl player. The Rams might have just found themselves another hidden gem for the defensive tackle position. But can you get in the conversation with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons and Nick Bosa and maybe somebody else in the secondary emerges if they have, a lot of interceptions this year? I can't see that for this year. Maybe down the road. If he's talking about down the road, I can definitely see this happening. This upcoming year, I'd probably give it a 25% chance. Let's keep chugging along here. We have Cleveland Browns running back Nick Chubb returns from knee injury to lead the NFL in rushing. Wow, that is another crazy prediction because Nick Chubb, this is his second really gruesome knee injury. He had one at Georgia, which that one might have been even worse than the one that happened last year against the Steelers. I do think before that injury, he was widely seen as the best pure runner. That was kind of always the thing with Nick Chubb. He was not a super versatile player. He was not going to catch 50 balls out of the backfield. He was not going to line up on the outside, run some routes like Christian McCaffrey and be a dual threat that way. But in terms of just handing the ball off to him and letting him cook, he was truly special with that. He is 28 years old and going to be 29 come December 27th. And that 30-year-old mark is a very dangerous spot for running backs to be in. I mean, there's a lot of data that shows their fall off once they get to their upper 20s. And if you look at his numbers, he was on a crazy streak. I mean, really, if you just count 4 yards short, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight seasons of 1,000+ yards. If you think about his competition for this, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, probably Derrick Henry with the Ravens. Again, I still think he can have a great season. Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, or Kyron Williams. There's always kind of a mystery back that emerges like every single season. So considering all of this, I don't think there's a great chance this happens. The only thing that's really going for him in terms of the injury is that it did happen really early in the season. So come week number 1, it'll be like a year removed. But I'm going to go with like another 20-25% chance this happens. I personally just get kind of scared off with these older running backs that are not like a freak of nature, like Derrick Henry, who's more like a linebacker playing running back. Number 8, Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh wins NFL Coach of the Year. Harbaugh coming off of his probably best coaching season in terms of just success, winning a national championship with the University of Michigan. And I'm a really big fan of Harbaugh. I mean, every single place he has gone, he has turned that program, or I guess even team, around. I mean, you go to San Diego, you go to Stanford, you go to Michigan even, you go to the 49ers. He took over all those teams at a pretty low state and then really rebuilt them and made them into, for I guess the respective conference or where they were playing, a very good team. So to do this, the bare minimum, the Chargers would have to make the playoffs, probably win 10 or 11 games. And I do think that's a possibility. I really do. I know they lost a lot of players this offseason, especially on offense with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, but they still have Justin Herbert. I'm a very big believer in him. And Harbaugh is going to bring in a tough-nosed type of offense where they're going to rely on the run. They're going to play some tough defense. They still do need talent all across the roster, but if you have a quarterback and a head coach, that gets you pretty far in the NFL. So I would not be shocked if the Chargers do win 10 or 11 games and make the playoffs. And if that happens, I do think Harbaugh will be in the running for Coach of the Year and probably be a favorite. So I'm actually going to give this like a 40% chance of happening because I do think the Chargers have a fairly decent shot to make the postseason. Number 9, Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson wins the MVP award. Richardson is unlike anything that the NFL has ever seen at the quarterback position. Adonai Mitchell said he's like a creative player. He's like one of them players that can legit do anything on the field. You talk about arm strength, crazy arm strength. This man can roll right, throw on the opposite hash to the left. It's a lot of stuff I ain't ever seen before. And this is very true. Richardson was compared largely to Cam Newton when he was coming out of Florida. Tremendous physical attributes. It was again just his lack of experience because he did not play a ton at Florida. And even last year as a rookie, he got hurt, missed almost the entirety of the year, still does not have a ton of experience. So if Richardson can stay healthy for all 17 games, could he find himself in the MVP running and even win the award? I'm not going to say it's impossible because I love Shane Steichen as an offensive mind. I think he's already one of the best in the league. The Colts have a fairly nice arsenal of weapons. You have Josh Downs in the slot. You have Michael Pittman Jr. You have Adonai Mitchell. You have Jonathan Taylor. And the offensive line is going to be really, really good as well. So I do like the infrastructure for the Colts offense. I like the guy that's going to be running the offense. It's just really about, can Richardson stay healthy? And the system we saw do wonders for Jalen Hurts with Steichen, because you go back to 2022 and Hurts was in the MVP running. He actually was the MVP runner-up behind Patrick Mahomes. And if he didn't get hurt, he might have actually won that award. So I don't think this is crazy to say Richardson does have a chance to do so. And the reason why this does seem so bold is because we just have not seen Richardson play at all, even like in his college days. But if I had to give it a percentage, I would probably say like a 15% chance. I would at this moment be very, very surprised if Richardson did beat out all the other top quarterbacks who we know are, already proven that they can stay healthy, are proven that they can be elite quarterbacks at the next level. But I would not rule this out because of the physical talent and the infrastructure that the Colts have built around them. And the last one for this video is the Detroit Lions win their first ever Super Bowl. And I speak for all NFL fans that if our favorite teams do not win the Super Bowl, we want the Detroit Lions to win it. They were truly America's team last year, such a fun team to follow along and watch, especially during the postseason. And honestly, they really should have made the Super Bowl. I mean, they had a huge lead on the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, made some questionable calls down the stretch in terms of just game management with Dan Campbell, ended up blowing the 24-7 lead, which definitely sucked. I mean, I feel like 90% of people, if you are not a 49ers fan, we're rooting for them. But their squad is more talented than it was last season. They're bringing back pretty much every single player. They also have their offensive coordinator coming back in Ben Johnson, who is widely seen as the top candidate for a head coaching job this year. He wanted to stay in Detroit. They're also retaining their defensive coordinator as well. Their secondary is probably the weakest unit on their team, and they completely overhauled that unit, getting rookies like Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, and even some veterans like Carlton Davis. They got one of the best run stoppers as well with DJ Reader in free agency. So I really do like what the Lions did this offseason to really help and fill all of their holes on their team. The NFC, again, I still believe it's just going to be the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Lions. It's kind of a three-team race is how I kind of view it. It's going to come down to the health of all three of those teams and who ultimately will be able to have home field advantage. But that is also just getting to the Super Bowl. They might have to face off against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be going for their third straight Super Bowl title this year. Maybe the Baltimore Ravens, maybe the Cincinnati Bengals, maybe the Buffalo Bills, maybe any of these other teams that have elite quarterbacks in the AFC. But if we're just going based off of that, I think it's a three-team race in the NFC. So maybe each team gets a 33% chance to make the Super Bowl. So I'll give the Lions a 25 to 30% chance to win their first Super Bowl. Obviously not going to be an easy road, but as this article stated, they're better on their roster this year. They're really retaining everybody, and of course their coaches keeping that continuity. The Lions, again, are going to be a very fun team to watch this upcoming season. Well, those are 10 bold NFL predictions for this upcoming season. Let me know in the comment section down below which one of these do you think has the greatest chance of actually happening, and maybe one bold prediction that you have yourself. But subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.